Working? Oh, there we go. All right, good evening. Leaving work and it's still light out. The days are getting longer. But we have snow on the ground and we had quite a snow yesterday. And thank you for joining us. I've been hearing a lot recently in the news. I tend to listen to the more right-wing news outlets and talk shows accusing people who speak out against Israel of anti-Semitism. And first of all, as I've said many times, I don't like this term anti-Semitism. I personally prefer Judeophobia, just like people speak about Islamophobia. I think Judeophobia is the more appropriate term because Judaism is a religion, not a race. And, calling Jews Semites is a racialization of Jewish identity, which is basically a Nazi ideology. Whereas classically, someone who was Jewish who left the faith lost most of the privileges of being Jewish. And there's actually questions to, a lot of things, as far as that's concerned. With all that being said, so here we are. It's Israel. Obviously, they also buy into that Nazi ideology of being Jewish having little or nothing to do with religion. But just to discuss that aspect of it, we'll put that aside. Is it anti-Semitic to question Israel and to oppose the state of Israel and so forth? Obviously, it can't be, because some of the biggest rabbis oppose Zionism, oppose the state of Israel, oppose the idea of a Jewish state. So no. Now, can on the other hand, can an anti-Semite oppose Israel? Yes. But generally, it's not necessarily one to the other. However, that being said, I don't believe that this, what's her name, Ilhan Omar, whatever, is an anti-Semite because she's a Muslim or because she opposes the state of Israel. I do believe she's an anti-Semite, or really, more precisely, like I said, a Judeophobe, because she's a Democrat. And the Democratic Party is the party that inspired the Nazi Party. It's the party of the KKK. And more than that, today they've embraced Marxist ideology, which is firmly Judeophobic. Marx himself, having come from a Jewish background, a Jewish ancestry, but seeing his father convert to Christianity for purely selfish and financial reasons, he became an enemy of Judaism and an enemy of Christianity as well. And most of the things that the left, the extreme left, and hate about Christianity are things that are rooted in Judaism, things out of our book of Leviticus. So, that being said, the Democratic Party is a party of Judeophobia, and if you want to use the term anti-Semitism colloquially, it is an anti-Jewish party, even though many of the people have Jewish ancestry in the Democratic Party, but it's a party that's firmly rooted against the Judeo-Christian ethic. And so, for that reason, not because of her feelings about Israel, which itself is a left-wing Marxist state, that has transformed Jewish identity away from what it's supposed to be, which is a spiritual, ideology, a religion, and transformed it into this death cult, is what Zionism is. And who are the real victims of Zionism? Not the Palestinians. the so-called Palestinians, which there's really no such thing as Palestinians. They're all Jordanians and Egyptians mostly. But there was no independent Palestinian country ever. You know, the name Palestine was given by the Romans. You know, these aren't the Philistines of the Bible. These are Arabs who came. Most of them came from Egypt or from Transjordan, what's now known as the Kingdom of Jordan. Specifically, when the Jewish settlers were looking for people to hire, and they didn't want to do the work themselves, and there were job opportunities, and that's why they came to the Holy Land. Most of the people who today identify as Palestinian Arabs have no ancestral connection to that place much before Jewish settlement started to increase, both pre-Zionist Jewish settlement and post-Zionist and Zionist Jewish settlement. I mean, there were Arab Muslim communities in the Holy Land, but they weren't very big. But the thing is that the Bible tells us that you angered me with a non-God, and so therefore I attacked you with a non-people. Just like, the Israelis, basically, you hear Israelis say, Ani lo Yehudi, ani Israeli. I'm not a Jew, I'm an Israeli. I mean, even Alan Dershowitz writes in his book Chutzpah that his mother would always say, oh, there are no Jewish thieves, and Jews commit white-collar crimes, not violent crimes. And then her house was robbed by some Israeli gangsters. And then, so Alan Dershowitz says, you see, Ma? These were Jews who robbed you. And the violent criminals are Jewish. Stop this racist idea that Jews can't be thieves and criminals, or if they are criminals, they're going to be white-collar criminals. God forbid, they shouldn't be such a thing. Someone's going to take that in a context. But, I'm talking in a sense of stereotypes. God forbid, no Jew should be a criminal. But when they are, they're usually white-collar criminals, right? And but the thing is, we have in prison where I work, people who are halachically Jewish and who are interested in Judaism, who committed violent crimes, bank robbers and things like that. What did Mrs. Dershowitz say to her son Alan? She said, "No, Alan, those weren't Jews. They were Israelis." Meaning, even to the traditional Jew, there's a recognition that Israelis, they're not really, they might share our DNA, but their culture is radically different than certain classical Jewish cultures, of which there are many. There's no one single universal Jewish culture. But their culture it's not the traditional Sephardic culture either. Just because they pronounce the tough and never pronounce the soft doesn't mean that they're Sephardim. Most of the leadership of Israel were downright racist against the Sephardic Jews. And against the Yemenite Jews and so forth. So it's a very complicated situation. But then, when there was the issue about Shaila and Geiris for the Ethiopians, right away the Haredim, they're the racists. When the Zionists had a long history of racism, and the truth was it wasn't even true, the whole story with the Badats, with the Barkin winery. The whole story was made up. radically different than what actually happened. So there's a lot of issues. But back to America, and forgetting about Israel. I mean, and that being said, the people from the BDS who live in the Holy Land do not consider themselves Israelis. They consider themselves Jews. They consider themselves residents of Jerusalem, traditional Jerusalemite Jews. They don't consider themselves Israelis, and they certainly don't consider themselves Zionists. But and the thing is, the religious Zionists are Jews. They are religious Jews. They are our brothers. We just disagree with them on this issue of religious Zionism. But religious Zionism is radically different than secular political Zionism. Even if there are political aspects of religious Zionism, we might disagree with them. Even radically disagree with them on those issues, but they're still our brothers. Whereas a heretic, an atheist, a Marxist is not our brother, even if just because they happen to share our DNA means nothing. And I hear the crazy thing is I hear it all the time from people who belittle the Hasidic movement because of the hereditary nature of the Hasidic Rebbe's, and they say, who cares about Yichus? But these same people tend to be Zionists and tend to be defending the secular Jews as our brothers. That's all about Yichus. I mean, a Chassidish Rebbe, he has the Yichus, but that's not the be-all and end-all. I mean, the Yichus stands in front of something. It stands behind something. It stands behind. He's a tzaddik. He's a Talmid Chacham. He davens ehrlich. He gives brachas and things like that. It's not just automatically he's born a Rebbe and now he's a Rebbe. Even though by the Chassidim they might have children who are Rebbes, but generally speaking, the Yanuka Rebbes, the child Rebbes, also were holy children. So it's not the way. But the truth is, you see. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen men who were the sons of Rebbes, and then they became Rebbes, and the change that happened to them when they became a Rebbe. And there's a change, So, but with all that being said, I do believe that this Ilana Omar, whatever her name is, an anti-Semite, but again, not because she's anti-Zionist, but because she's a Democrat. And the Democratic Party is founded on racism, and anti-Semitism is only a small part of their racism. The main racism of the Democratic Party is their utter contempt and hatred for our African American, fellow American citizens, and the contempt that the Democratic Party has for the African Americans goes along with an assumption that they will vote for them, an assumption that it's a low expectations, really contempt that the Democrats have, that they don't have to do anything to earn the black vote because LBJ took care of that, who was a horrible racist, and who, and when all the Democrats voted against it, he came up with this scheme that he would sign a bill into law that was almost universally and exclusively supported by Republicans, who are the party of freedom, who are the party of, and still to this day are the party of civil rights and freedom and civil liberties, and felt that that he was able to bamboozle people. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of that has to do historically with FDR, going back to the Great Depression and things like that, and it's not really the way people think it is. And then this that people claim, oh, all the racists in the South, then they became Republican, which is even more ridiculous. Even if you want to claim that the Democrats are no longer racist, when they totally are. Their whole platform is inherently racist. The whole idea of identity politics, of dividing and conquering this country based on identity and as opposed to caring about the individual, that's racist. That's essentially racism. That's what the Democratic Party is all about. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is what the Democratic Party is. It's a racist party that divides people by race. That all they care about are identity politics. They don't care about the individual. They care about the color of your skin. They care about your gender. They care about all kinds of things that have nothing to do with the individual. And the name Democrat versus Republican inherently reflect that philosophy, because to the Democrats what matters is the majority rule. It's a majoritarian democracy. The Republicans, they care about maintaining this country as a republic, which means we have no monarchy, we have no king, we have no emperor, and the people are what's important, not the majority, but the idea of a republic is inherently linked to protecting the minority rights, and the most important minority is the minority of one, the individual, that each individual is made in the image of God. And that's what's central, and that's what the president said when he came into office. Unlike Obama, who came into power, or Clinton, who came into power, President Trump came into office because he said this is not merely the regimes changing hands one to another. This is the restoration, the return of the power to the people. And it's true. And since Judaism is where that idea came from, of the rights of the individual, the Torah, the Jewish Bible was the first document that introduced to the world. I mean, it didn't come up with the idea; it was given by God, but it was that God gave us this idea that even a slave has human rights, and we were all made in the image of God. And that idea, the collectivist idea that the Democrats believe in, is the polar opposite of that most basic idea of Judaism. Even though we do find certain collectivist ideas in Torah, in the Bible, in Judaism, that doesn't mean that that's what we're being directed to do necessarily. Even when it comes, because as we explained, Judaism doesn't just rely on scripture. We're not a solo scriptura religion, quite the opposite. At least what's known traditionally as rabbinical Judaism, whatever it is. I mean, I believe it to be the original Judaism that was given by God to Moses, and really with millions of witnesses to that truth. But the concepts that we have here, excuse me, of individual freedom are underlined in the rabbinical tradition. Meaning the rabbinical tradition almost goes out of its way to eliminate so much of the collectivist ideas of a plain reading of Scripture. So when it comes to the 7 Canaanite nations, of which we're not supposed to make any kind of a pact with, the rabbinical tradition explains that that is specifically speaking about allowing them to remain idolaters because of the corruption of their idolatrous beliefs. But if they accept monotheism, even without fully converting to Judaism, but they accept ethical monotheism, we call the 7 laws of Noah, then they can stay, then they're fine, and there's no problem. And that's even on an individual level. The same thing is with the people of Amalek. We're taught, even though from the plain reading of Scripture it would seem that we have this eternal war with Amalek, and there is a commandment to wipe out Amalek, but then the rabbis teach us that Haman, who is called the Agagi, the Agagite, and Agag was the king of Amalek, so it would seem that that's in that rubric there, that he was an Amalekite. It says that his great-grandchildren taught Torah in Bnei Brak. And so it shows that someone from Amalek can convert to Judaism and is accepted. Some say that was none other than Rabbi Akiva, or at least one of his students. And that Rabbi Akiva was actually a descendant of Haman. And so it shows that there's no place for racism in Judaism. The issue is not race, the issue is not DNA as much, although there are certain issues that are linked to DNA. You can't be a Kohen necessarily, although from the biblical point of view it says, and also from them I will take to be Kohanim and Leviim. So what does that mean exactly? And the fact is, though, you can convert to Judaism, and according to most opinions, not everyone agrees, but like 2 generations later or 3 generations later, whatever, can marry a Kohen, and not the actual convert can't marry the Kohen, but perhaps their children could marry the Kohen, and then their Kohanim could be the Kohen Gadol, could be, and certainly from the king we saw, and the whole story of the Moabites were not allowed to enter into the congregation of the Lord, and yet the rabbis ask, are the Moabites and the Ammonites still in their land? When Sennacherib came, he moved all these different, the king of Assyria, he came, and he moved around all of these different nations, and so therefore we, call a parish parish, and they become totally assimilated, and we don't go and be worried. Maybe there's a Moabite in the lineage now, and that's it. That we can't marry anybody, we can't convert anybody. Everybody we have to worry could be a Moabite. No, the rabbinical tradition took the opposite way. First, even in the time of David, what we're taught is that the question came up, and they said it's specifically the men and not the women, and they found proof from that in Deuteronomy. And they didn't greet you with water and bread, and that was it. And we were able to assimilate Ruth, and David was able to be the king, and we were able to have eventually, God willing, we'll have a Messiah because of this, because the rabbis were open-minded enough to accept Ruth, and they were able to find a scriptural proof for that. And they were, and the whole story with Sarah, which we've discussed before, and so too, so the Mishnah tells us that the Moabites today, even the Moabite man, a man comes and he says he's a Moabite, doesn't matter. He's not a Moabite. Just because he lives in the land of Moab, he makes him a Moabite? No. He's a convert, and he's Jewish, and he's mutalov b'kahal. And so, there are ways of fixing these things, and it shows the value of the individual, the care for the individual who was made in the image of God, the respect, and this, like the story I always tell in Gemara and Yuma about the Kohen Gadol, who was he somehow made it out of the Kodesh Kodashim and survived and didn't have to be dragged out dead by a rope. We don't know his name, but I can assume I would assume he didn't make it the rest of that year. But this Kohen Gadol, who when on his way out of the Beis Hamikdash, everyone was surrounding him and celebrating that he made it out and he survived. You know, and Shmai and Naftalian, who were the two greatest rabbis of the generation, and who were either converts or children of converts, actually from Sennacherib. They were actually descendants of the Assyrian king Sennacherib. And Shmai and Naftalian were also following the Kohen Gadol, and a group surrounded them and started to show them respect. And the Kohen Gadol was a little put off by that, and the high priest, he was put off by that, and he said, "Shalom aleichem b'nei Amim, peace be to ye, you children of heathens." And then their answer back was, "Better we, the children of heathens, than who act Aaron, who act like Aaron, who perform the works of Aaron, than you, the son of Aaron, who doesn't do the Uvdad Aaron, who doesn't act like Aaron, who isn't Oiv Shalom, Veroid of Shalom, Oiv Zabrios, Makarvin Latorah, all brios, all creatures, all creatures great and small, to not see the potential there. A child of Sennacherib, a descendant of Sennacherib, who now was the greatest scholar and the true Jewish leader, not just someone who happened to be born with the yichus from Aaron HaKohen, but didn't live up to the office of the Kohen Gadol. He just happened to occupy an office, but didn't really live up to that, because that's the whole idea of Aaron HaKohen is we're taught to be Talmidim Shel Aaron HaKohen. We're taught to be disciples of Aaron. Oyev Shalom, right of Shalom, Oyev Zabrius Makarvin Latorah. We're supposed to love peace and pursue peace. We're supposed to love all creatures, all people. It doesn't say just Jews, everybody, and bring them close to Torah. And so there's hope for the Democrats too, that they can do tshuva. So thank you, and there's hope for the Zionists too. They could even they can do tshuva. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and we can all repent. I can also repent. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and thank you for watching. Take care.